Good morning. We're going to call this meeting of the TRPA Transportation Committee to order. The date is Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025, and it is 9:35. First item on the agenda is the roll call to determine a quorum. Maria?
Mr. Aguilar,
Here.
Mr. Bass,
Here.
Ms. Hayes, Ms. Hill,
Here.
Mr. Hennigman,
Here.
Mr. Vice Chair, we have a quorum.
Great. I will now go over the remote and in-person meeting rules for the day. Remote committee members, please raise your hand to speak and mute your microphone unless speaking to help cut down on background noise. I'd like to ask that all remote members turn your camera on if you're able. Remote members may not use the chat box to make any comments or to have sidebar conversations. If you're viewing the webinar on a personal computer in the room, please ensure that your microphone and speakers are turned off to prevent audio feedback into the room. Members of the public who have joined us in person, please raise your hand at the appropriate time for public comment and you will be called up to the front to speak. The first item on our agenda is the public comment period for any item listed on the agenda. Any member of the public wishing to address the committee on an agenda item, please raise your hand below now or either in person by clicking the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen or by dialing *9 on your phone, and you will be called on and unmuted by a TRPA staff member. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Is there anybody in the room that would like to give public comment? Seeing none, we will go to Zoom.
We have no hands raised to make public comment online.
Great. And with that, we will go ahead and close the public comment and we will go ahead and move on to the approval of the agenda. It's to staff. Any
No changes, Mr. Chair.
All right. And I will deem the agenda approved as posted. Let's see. We are now on agenda item 3. This is going to be approval of the minutes. We have a draft set of minutes from the April 23rd, 2025 meeting on page 17 of your packet. Does any member of the committee wish to make a change? If not, I can entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Motion to approve.
Roll call vote, or can we just
Voice vote is fine.
voice vote? Aye.
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 And then with that, we are going to move on to agenda item 4. This is a discussion and possible recommendation for approval of the fiscal year 25-26 Lake Tahoe Transportation Overall Work Program Amendment number 1. Information can be found on page 157 of your packet. And this will be Mrs. Michelle Glickert.
Yes, good morning. Great to have you all here. Thank you, Chairman Bass. Michelle Glickert, Transportation Planning Manager. I have a very short item, shorter than my usuals, seeking your approval of our amendment to the Transportation Planning Overall Work Program. Next slide. So here's a summary of the total budget changes, and a detailed list of those changes are in your packet. As Mayor Bass mentioned, the full document is also available online. So what you have before you today is, with preparation of our work program each year, it starts really early in February, and we bring it to the board for approval in April. So revenue sources have to be carried forward in the next fiscal year. We have to estimate those, and those are based on anticipated work to be completed over those next few months, end of the fiscal year. We have to estimate our contracts and invoices that will be billed and our overhead rate, as well as staffing updates that we're not always aware of. So once the fiscal year is closed out in late fall, we then amend those funds back into our budget. And so that's what's before you today, shown here in the table. We break out our budget into 2 categories. We have our direct costs, which are contracts and purchases, and staffing costs, which include salaries, our benefits, and that overhead. So this year we've added back in about $235,000, and we're focusing those in 2 major work elements that implement the regional transportation plan programs and data management and collection. So those 2 work elements will be supporting the priorities of our work plan and our work program overall. And there was a slight overall staffing budget decrease from a combination of things. That's a staff turnover, unanticipated, so those vacancies, and also overall reduction in our overhead rate. And so that's my summary. So next slide. With that, I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Great. Any committee members have questions or comments? Nothing. All right. Yeah, nothing from me. Any further comments from the committee? If not, I'll entertain a motion. In a word for this motion to pass, we need an affirmative vote of the majority.
So moved.
All right. We need a roll call vote on this, Mario, or, okay, take a roll call.
Mr. Aguilar,
Yes.
Mr. Bass,
Yes.
Mr. Henigman,
Yes.
Ms. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Vice Chair, that motion passes.
Great. That'll bring us to agenda item 5. This is going to be a discussion and possible recommendation for approval of the fiscal year 25-26 Transportation Committee Work Plan. Information on this item can be found on page 135, and this will be Mr. John Hester.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Hester, Chief Operating Officer for the record, and I will be sharing this presentation with Michelle. Like last year, after the strategic plan and work plan were approved, we focused in on the particular priority and the committee work plan. So this is an update to last year's Transportation Committee work plan. I will provide a few slides on context and then turn it over to Michelle to get into more detail on the projects. Next slide, please. So this is our general model of how we gain public input and make decisions. And I wanted to point out how the Transportation Committee fits in. We start on the slide with usually with projects at the staff level. And then we have technical and implementation committees shown in green that we work with from our partners, local jurisdictions and regional partners and state partners. And then when we have something that requires formal action, it usually goes through the Advisory Planning Commission, Regional Planning Committee, if it needs to. For example, if there is a code amendment that is needed, that will go through, and that's the kind of thing, for example, you might see on the project impact assessment project that and mobility mitigation fee. That's one of the work plan items that Michelle will cover. And then comes to the Transportation Committee before going to the full board. Depending on the type of action it is, it's either the TRPA board or the Tahoe Metropolitan Planning Organization board. So we have, to summarize, we have input and feedback at all levels, kind of an iterative process. And this is what we'll use generally on all of our projects that Michelle will cover and other projects. Next slide. So I kind of wanted to talk about the transportation partnership in the basin because it's critical to understand the context. TRPA obviously leads the planning function, and you've got some of the projects in light blue shown up here that are our projects that Michelle will cover. There's a brief description of a number of the other partners. And in fact, the last item, Mr. Marino's presentation, is from one of our regional partners, TTD. But I just wanted to let you know, we recognize, and I know you recognize, that there's a partnership with federal, state, regional, adjacent regions, local governments, NGOs, private developers who put projects in as part of their developments. That is very complex and very complementary. And so we could not do what we do in transportation in this region without that partnership. So I just wanted to point that out and now turn it over to Michelle to go through the projects that are in the work plan.
Thank you, John. Michelle Glicker, Transportation Planning Manager. So yeah, I'm going to walk you through the priority areas that John spoke of, and these are also outlined in more detail in your work plan attached to the staff report. So all of these do have linkages back to implementing the adopted regional transportation plan, as well as the TRPA work plan, and of course the MPO work program. So transit and governance is getting kicked off early next month, and this is focused on creating a governance framework for transit in Tahoe. Also, a long-term service plan will be a part of that. So scenarios that optimize our transit funds are going to be looked at, what those operations are. That's locally and regionally. And then transportation system management and operations, we call that our TISMO plan. So this is our technology plan update. And it's going to be focused on managing our system and providing information with that smart technology piece. And that's closely tied to the third priority up here, Transportation Resilience Improvement Plan. That's better known as TRIP, well, or soon to be known as our TRIP. This plan, as well as TISMO, will be getting started in January and coordinated closely together, especially on that emergency communication strategy, which is a part of the Transportation Resilience Plan. So these next two, they overlap a little bit, the ones on the bottom row: regional parking collaboration and destination management. Parking management is a strategy reflected in the regional transportation plan. It's in our town section and a major component of recreation corridor management plans, which is that nice tie to destination management. And John hit on a little of this and that collaboration across those jurisdictions and the various operators of parking. That's really important, so that we're going to be reporting out on how parking management's going, making sure TRPA is not a barrier, and that we're supporting the Tahoe Transportation District and the other partners who implement and manage public parking. And so that our next presentation with Mr. Reno, the TTD Executive Director here, he's going to hit on some of those priorities as well in destination management that we've highlighted. And this is two of our largest recreation corridors, 28 and 89. So the work plan incorporates regular reports back to this committee at various stages. And these projects, as they're moving along and implementing their approved corridor plans. And this last one, a little bit of a catch-all for RTP implementation. This will be reports back to the committee on our continued pursuit of transportation funding, an update to the mobility mitigation fee and project impact assessment. That process that was adopted about 4.5 years ago now. So this update is to address recent feedback we've heard and ensure the determination of impacts is straightforward and consistent. Next slide. So here, while our priorities is utilizing that various feedback loop that John mentioned, that process framework with the public and technical working groups, this is a draft schedule for the committee and information items and the action items that we'll be bringing forward. The work plan that you have also in your packet, it contains individual schedules for each of those priority areas, and they'll be updated from time to time as they progress. Next month, here on the slide, Dan Segan will be bringing you information on update to our mobility mitigation fee I just mentioned. And Nick Haven will be sharing recommendations for project funds through the MPO grant program. And then later in the winter, we're going to come back providing project updates on those recreation corridors again, and touch base on progress towards our regional transit governance framework. I mentioned transit's a big priority for us this next year. So that will be also a recommendation of approval on our biennial transportation performance report. And that's a newer report. We'll be looking at all of our T's, how are we doing in transit, trails, technology. Did you have a question, Mr. Beth? No? Okay. And then in the spring, once we are underway with the 2 new consultant-supported contracts for our TISMO plan and our TRIP, we'll have a more solid timeline on deliverables and needs from the committee. So staff leads will be providing those updates, getting you a little bit more involved in those plans. And this is also about the time I'll be back seeking approval of our next fiscal year's MPO overall work program. So you're going to be seeing some of these carried forward into that next work program. And then for this fiscal year, I'll just be wrapping up with some general information on that regional parking coordination. Next slide. So with that, we're here to answer any questions and make sure we're on the right track with the committee's work plan. We also have staff here as well leading those programs to answer questions.
Great, thank you. Any community members have any questions or comments? I have one quick question. I'm curious, and this may really be more under TTD. I know that we've had, and it was mentioned there's private developers, but we do have some private providers of transit. Heavenly, I'm thinking of maybe North Star on the South Shore or North Shore, even Amador stage lines coming from Reno Airport. Are we able to get that counted into our ridership numbers? And is that something that the TRPA has more kind of authority to request? Yeah, I'm just curious if we've taken a look at that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jim Marino for the record, Executive Director, Tahoe Transportation District. In order for TTD to submit the ridership to the National Transit Database, we would need a direct contract with those providers. We cannot just take ridership and report it without some sort of contract with them. There is a voluntary reporting mechanism which allows those individuals to report voluntarily to the NTD, which then adjusts the ridership in the basin. There are discussions that we're currently having with Vail.
Great. And that's more under TTD. That doesn't happen. That's under the role of TTD, not TRPA. Great. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Tony.
On there was the item about parking management. And I was wondering, is that more what we're doing on 28 and 89, or is that kind of looking ahead to a bigger basin-wide thing that could be a revenue source?
It's a little bit of both. Yeah, I know. That's the whole idea, is that while TRPA is not in the business of managing those lots, we definitely want to be helping with that collaborative approach regionally and locally. So that's those outside, park and rides and how we can support those, what's needed. So we're going to be working closely with the Tahoe Transportation District and also kind of bringing together all of the folks in the basin who are implementing those projects so that we can get to that bigger vision and make sure we're implementing the regional transportation plan, which contains those regional nodes outside and also inside.
All right. If there's no further comments, or Ms. Hill, I should check with you online if you have any comments on this item.
No, thank you for asking, Mr. Chairman.
Great. All right. So with that, we can go ahead and entertain a motion. In order for this motion to pass, we must have an affirmative vote of a majority of the quorum present.
So moved.
Great. We have a motion. Maria, can we get a roll call?
Mr. Aguilar,
Yes.
Mr. Bass,
Yes.
Mr. Henigman,
Yes.
Ms. Hill,
Yes,
Mr. Vice Chair, that motion passes.
Great. That brings us to agenda item 6. This is going to be a presentation of the Regional Transportation Plan implementation examples. Information on this item can be found on page 203. And this will also be Mr. John Hester.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not to put any pressure on Mr. Marino, but I think this is the highlight of your meeting. And just give you a little quick introduction on where this item came from. When the Advisory Planning Commission was recommending approval of the Regional Transportation Plan, they asked for more information on how does the RTP get implemented. And so we imposed upon Mr. Marino to give them some examples. And so he put together a presentation. This particular request was from Washoe County, so it's focused on the East Shore. And after seeing that presentation at the Advisory Planning Commission, we thought it was really important for this committee, and we invited any board members who wanted to sit in on this, since it's right before the main meeting, to hear this, because it's very informative and a very good example of that partnership I talked about. So without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Jim Marino, Executive Director of the Tahoe Transportation District.
Thanks, John. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Happy to be here today. For the record, Jim Marino, Executive Director, Tahoe Transportation District. Today, I'd like to walk you through a series of capital projects that TTD is leading with regard to implementing certain regionally significant projects in the RTP. Next slide, please. Real quick, for those who don't know who we are or what we do, I'm pretty sure everybody does, but we were created via Article 9 of the Bi-State Compact, and generally we're responsible for facilitating and implementing safe multimodal projects and public transit in the Tahoe Basin. We also have an arm in parking management. We literally work in partnership with virtually every agency and group in the Tahoe Basin. We have 4 main divisions in Tahoe Transportation District. We have a transit operations division, which covers the south and east shores of Lake Tahoe, includes regional connectivity to the Minden, Gardnerville, and Carson City area. We have a capital program, which we'll get into here shortly. We have a parking management program known as Park Tahoe. And to answer the question earlier at the last presentation, we are considering a holistic look at parking management in the basin. And of course, we have administration. Next slide, please. TTD has a robust capital program at the moment. We are funded nearly $87 million for a series of projects on the Nevada side of the lake. Currently, TTD is the lead on the following RTP projects: SR 28 Corridor Management Plan implementation, SR 28 North Parking Project, SR 28 Sand Harbor to Thunderbird Cove Trail and Vista Point Project, SR 28 Thunderbird Cove to Secret Harbor Trail, parking, Vista Points, and crosswalk. That's a mouthful. SR 28 Spooner Mobility Hub and AIS Station, the vertical components. And the US 50 Larda Drive to State Line Avenue multi-use trail and sidewalk project. We're also leading a smart technology project known as the Intelligent Transportation Systems Technology. In previous years, even though TTD helped facilitate these large-scale projects, we were not the actual implementer. For example, the East Shore Trail outside of Incline Village was constructed by NDOT. The roundabouts at Highway 28 and Highway 89 in Tahoe City, and including the current project of Fanny Bridge, is being implemented by Central Federal Lands. Moving forward, however, TTD is going to take a more active role in implementation. And to that, we have bolstered our capital program staffing with project managers and project engineers. Next slide, please. Beginning on the northernmost edge of State Route 28, we have the North Parking Project, which is the final segment of the previously built Tunnel Creek parking or Bonanza parking lot that exists there now. This project proposes an additional 38 spaces, a multi-use bike trail connecting the two parking lots together that also connects to the East Shore Trail, a formalized transit stop on the southbound or northbound lanes, southbound lanes, at Lakeshore Drive. Expand the no parking zone through the commercial core there adjacent to this parking area. Eliminate off-highway parking on native surface at the Rocky Point location and some water quality improvements. We are completely done with design on this. It is in with NDOT for final permitting now. We expect that permit any day now. We will bid this project in December of this year with an estimated construction start in 2026. We are fully funded for design. And we have about $100,000 gap in construction funding, which we don't see as a big issue at this point in time. We could talk about value engineering when the bids come in, or we could seek some local fund sources to close that gap. By all means, we believe this project will be in construction next summer. Next slide, please. Moving south on SR 28 or uphill, the next project that we have is the Sand Harbor to Thunderbird Cove Trail project. This is essentially an extension of the East Shore Trail from Sand Harbor State Park up to the Chimney Beach Trailhead, which is essentially a quarter mile north of Thunderbird Cove. This project proposes to construct approximately 2 miles of East Shore Trail, relocate shoulder park cars to the newly built Chimney Beach parking lot that the U.S. Forest Service had led, provide Vista Points and interpretive signage, connect the new trail to Sand Harbor and to State Park and U.S. Forest Service authorized shoreline access trails, and extend the no parking on SR 28 to the Carson City line. We're currently in design for this project, and we are fully funded for that design. We are going to deliver this project through the CMAR process, which is known as Construction Manager at Risk. That will accelerate our delivery timeline, and it will help with some value engineering and constructability analysis. We anticipate this project to be started construction subject to total funding in spring of 2027. If you look at our funding chart there on the table, we're fully funded for design, as I mentioned. Our construction gap if you will, is roughly about $8.2 million. We feel that the CMAR process moving forward will help us close that gap. And I also want to mention that we are actively pursuing several other grants for this project to close that grant as well. Okay. Next slide, please. Again, moving south on SR 28 or uphill towards Spooner Summit, we have the next connection of the trail, which is Thunderbird Cove to Secret Harbor. This proposes to build another mile of trail, relocate an additional 120 highway parked vehicles to the newly constructed and expanded Secret Harbor parking lot as part of this project. We are also constructing transit improvements at this location, which include a full turnout off highway with acceleration and deceleration lanes for public transit. This will help with public transit access on the SR 28 corridor. Vista points also included in this project, and the no parking zone on SR 28 will be extended from the Carson City line south to the chain up zone. Status of this project, we are at 60% design level. We are fully funded for design. However, we have a significant construction gap on this project. And I'll just point out that the Sand Harbor to Thunderbird Cove project, through the help of our partner agencies and our Nevada legislature, helped us get a $24 million raise grant. So we focused on filling that project's construction dollars first. And this one is our next phase. So with that being said, we don't have a construction date set aside on this yet. But I will say that, again, we have submitted several grants that we should hear January and February of the upcoming year, whether or not we have gotten those grants to support construction on this project. Next slide, please. And finally, at the southern terminus of SR 28, we have the Spooner Mobility Hub and Aquatic Invasive Species Inspection Station project. This is a co-sponsored project. NDOT is taking the lead on all of the civil work of this project. TTD is taking the lead on all of the vertical work on this project. This project will be located directly across from the entrance of Spooner State Park. It includes 250 parking spaces, transit shelter and hub, permanent aquatic invasive species station with outbuildings and necessary materials, restrooms, EV parking, and a crosswalk across Highway 28 to the Spooner Park. This project is currently out to bid. Bids will be received, I believe, in 1 month. NDOT plans on being in construction next spring. Our vertical construction will come the following year once NDOT has a significant amount of site work done. This project is fully funded all the way through design and construction. We feel that this project is ready to go. It has a TRPA permit issued as well. Next slide, please. Moving over to the state line zone, California, Nevada. We have the Laura Drive to State Line Avenue. This is a continuation of the South Demonstration project that goes from Cal Drive to Nevada Beach. This will take that project west. It'll run behind Laura Drive, connect in at the 4H Road, run parallel to Highway 50 on both sides of the highway, and then continue down Lake Parkway to State Line Avenue. On the lake side, it's a multi-use path with lighting. And on the mountain side, it'll be a sidewalk with lighting from the Kingsbury Grade intersection to Lake Parkway intersection. It will include pedestrian improvements and intersection improvements for pedestrian access at the Kingsbury location. We have our design funding secured for this. We are waiting for an agreement with NDOT to execute those funds. And as soon as we get that, we will solicit for a design consultant. We have several $1 million, or $1 million secured for construction. We have a gap of about $5 million. We have applied for several grants for this project as well, HSIP and other highway safety improvement funds, and we feel fairly confident we can close that gap. We would estimate if we could close that gap, construction would begin in 2027. Next slide, please. TTD has taken the lead on a smart technology project in the entire basin. And what we've done is we received $1.4 million grant from U.S. Department of Transportation to test data analytics via artificial intelligence software on camera-mounted equipment at various location points in the basin. The strategy behind this project is to quantify visitation in the in the basin, quantify the movement of vehicles in the basin, and what that does for roadway use, congestion, and vulnerable users. We deployed 7 cameras on the California side, 3 cameras on the Nevada side, and we have a mobile camera that we can deploy whenever we see fit. This program is ending this month. With some partnerships with TRPA and a few others, we've managed to secure enough money to keep the data collection going for a year until we can solicit stage 2 grant funds from U.S. Department of Transportation and/or some other source. This program has been highly successful. And to give you some examples, in the County of Myers, we discovered 130 plus wrong way drivers in a roundabout out there. Immediately contacted Caltrans and CHP, and within weeks, there was a remediation plan and a new signage and striping plan implemented in Myers. We mobilized our temporary trailer to the Emerald Bay corridor this summer, and in 40 days, it was located right there at the Eagle Falls Trailhead parking area. In 40 days, we've noticed 20,513 pedestrian crossings across the highway. And as we all know, that's a blind turn, okay? In that same time period, we had 759 vehicle U-turns in that location. And we had 8 pedestrian vehicle near misses. So this gives us the data that we need to start implementing projects. Another example is the SR 28 and 207 intersection in Kings Beach. We did 2 analysis. We did pre-peak season and peak season. And just as an example, during peak season, articulated trucks, in other words, large tractor trailers that move freight, increased by 159%, which gives a direct correlation that we're not just dealing with tourism traffic, we're dealing with freight movement increases and other things that go up on our peak seasons. We also saw a heavy increase in active transportation, in other words, bicycles, in that location at 23 times the peak season rate. So again, gives us the data to institute and start planning for active transportation and roadway safety improvements. That data is critical for securing funding from both the federal and state levels. Our next step on this particular project is to seek U.S. Department of Transportation Stage 2 funding, which we believe will be out next month. I believe we are in a good position for that. Our roundabout information in Myers, when we posted it on our social media sites, went viral. 32.4 million views. It was picked up by major news sources, and US DOT had even recognized it. So I believe we're in some pretty good position with that for the next grant. Next slide, please. And with that, that is the projects that TTD is leading as part of the regional transportation plan. Our role is to really do the recreation corridors and those particular areas across jurisdictional boundaries. That's what our role in the capital program is. And with that, I'd be happy to obviously answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Marino. Any committee members with questions? Yes, Mr. Aguilar.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. I just thank you for making State Route 28 a priority. I think the projects that were listed today are going to be substantial improvement, not only for just the flow of traffic, but the safety of people visiting the area. And that's the biggest concern. So thank you.
Great. And Ms. Hill, any questions? Ms. Hill, just checking with you before we move on. Yes, Ms. Reagan.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Julie Reagan, TRPA's Executive Director. I just really wanted to thank Mr. Marino and the Tahoe Transportation District, fellow board members. I hold the seat for the governing board. And so really appreciate any feedback you have for me in this venue and otherwise to feed into the TTD board meetings. It's been an excellent collaborative opportunity for me to have that seat and to work with Jim in his new tenure and his new administration of the agency. I really want to kind of summarize what Jim just laid out for you. And I do appreciate Secretary Aguilar's comments, because I feel like we are finally moving into an aggressive period of action on plans that our agency and its capacity, with our great team of Michelle and her staff on the planning and the vision documents for the corridors. But, aspirational goals only, that gets you nowhere when you have safety concerns and water quality concerns from roadside parking. And so with the partnership now being what it is with TTD, and Jim's leadership and his experience in project delivery, I do feel like we are turning the corner on some long-standing goals for decades that we've wanted to get some order to the 28 corridor, to the 89 corridor around Emerald Bay, two of the areas that bring, more car traffic that are not just for visitors, but for those of us who love Lake Tahoe as locals. We go to these corridors. So we have to do better to make them safer and to protect the resource and not trample the resources. And I do feel like we're making some really solid progress. So appreciate the chance to run you through some of that and, and more to come. And thank you to Jim and the TTD staff too.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Reagan. And yes, I couldn't agree more. Just seeing the change since Mr. Marino has been at TTD has been just refreshing. I think there's a lot of good things happening without a doubt. I don't want to hammer too much. I get that this was really focused on Nevada and 28, but it has commonly come up of kind of how do we get 89 as a priority? And it sometimes seems to me like, NDOT, and of course it's a lot closer than Marysville, so I get that side of it. But what can we do in a way for Caltrans to begin taking the same interest? And I know politically, there's not even politically, just the dynamics of District 3 and Caltrans and SACOG and kind of that, and then we're our own MPO up here. And I just sometimes wonder, what can we do in a way to try to court Caltrans to pay more attention to us, essentially? And is that a problem, I guess? And I'm not trying to call out Caltrans, but I'm wondering, what is it that we do? I know we need to get projects to the kind of next level to really get them funded. But I guess my concerns sometimes come that the US DOT, the federal money, because we don't have these things, that they're all going to 28, which I am in support of, because those are incredibly important for SR 28. But we also know the real needs on 89. And so I'm just curious kind of your take and what maybe we can try to do with Caltrans.
Thank you for the question. Again, Jim Marino, TTD. With the great partnership with Supervisor Lane and multiple agencies on the California side, including Tahoe Fund and League to Save Lake Tahoe, they established that pilot project this past summer. As part of that pilot project, Caltrans has performed a formal road safety audit of the Emerald Bay corridor. That's significant because it ties Caltrans to safety improvements in the corridor. Okay, whether they deliver them or we deliver them or another agency deliver them still needs to be said. But at the end of the day, that first step has been taken. We expect that road safety audit to be completed any day now. I'm hearing by the end of the month. Okay, and we'll get a draft look at that. Additionally, on behalf of El Dorado County, League to Save Lake Tahoe and Tahoe Fund, TTD is also submitted for regional grant program funding to continue that pilot program and start that planning process for Emerald Bay Corridor. And then on top of that, as you may know, SB 426 was passed in the state of Nevada, which gives TTD certain authorities with regard to traffic calming measures, parking management, whatnot. We are proposing to do the same in California at the next session, or at least try to. So hopefully that answers that question.
Definitely, thank you. And then my other question is about the Laura Drive to State Line Avenue project, and I'm just wondering, you know, that obviously meets right at the state line, and have we looked at trying to make that a kind of a bi-state project in a way similar to Van Sickle, just knowing that we also have that gap from State Line down Pine up to Park Avenue, and then of course, and I know some projects are somewhat in the city, but not that connects all that, and it almost seems that one contractor, one project to get that whole thing done would make sense. So I'm wondering kind of where we're at looking at that at one project.
I do know that the city of South Lake Tahoe has the State Line Avenue Streetscape project and water quality project going to planning phase. So it would behoove us, when we get our design consultant on board, to partner with the city's consultant and see what opportunities are available to connect the two. And then longer term, I believe the city also has a Class 1 trail planned for the Pine Heavenly Village Way zone down there. And I'm not really sure where that stands, but again, it's about a coordination, right? The city would be a stakeholder in our project, we'd be a stakeholder in their project, and we could coordinate and see if there's opportunities there.
Great, yeah, we
Yep.
definitely do have that in our CIP, but I think it's a real opportunity to come together and possibly just do it as one project. And then that really completes such a gap for pedestrian and bicycle access that is critical. So glad to see that, but I would hope maybe we can figure out how to coordinate and get it all done at once. So yeah, if there's no other committee questions, let's see, this was, I believe, just a presentation item, so we do not need a motion. Thank you so much, Mr. Marino, Ms. Glickard, and Mr. Hester. That was great information. And so now we are going to be moving on to agenda item 7. This is any committee member comments. So if there are any committee members with additional comments, and Ms. Hill, if you're online, I don't believe she may be on with us anymore. So with that, we're going to move on to our final public matter of business. This is for general public interest comment period. Any member of the public wishing to address the Transportation Committee on any item listed or not listed on the agenda may do so at this time. Individuals or groups who have already commented on items listed on this agenda are not permitted to comment on the same topic. So is there anybody here in the public that would like to give public comment? Seeing none, we can check with Zoom.
We have no hands raised online for public comment.
Great. We will go ahead and close the public comment period and looking for a motion to adjourn. All right, we are adjourned.